To recap 2021, I'd like to use our own version of the Wayback Machine from Mr. Sherman and Peabody to take you back to some of the things that we said at the start of the year. Then we'll see how close we were to the target. Let's watch. In addition, we'll have lots of financial upheaval that you may have to face. For example, there are strong signals that inflation is about to return in a big way. You likely noticed that the last time you visited a store or got takeout from a restaurant. Price pressures are enormous, and there's been so much money printing to keep the economy afloat during the pandemic. At the same time, China has gotten increasingly aggressive. The Chinese have plans to become the dominant economy in the world over the next 5 years and to punish anyone who stands in their way. At the same time, we have a stock market that is at all-time highs despite the economic problems of a global pandemic and despite the huge change in policies that we can expect from a Biden-Harris administration. Now, add to all of that, the American companies have decided now all of a sudden they're going to get highly political with your money. Okay, stop the tape. We pointed out 4 economic trends that should have been obvious at the time, but were largely ignored by the media. Here are the 4. First, we said inflation would become a big problem, and it has. But the economists and the media simply ignored it until recently. They kept claiming that it was transitory. Even as late as July, Paul Krugman of the New York Times was claiming that inflation had died and wouldn't be a problem. Check out the headline. The weak inflation panic died. Remember, when everyone was panicking about inflation, warning ominously about 1970s type stagflation, okay, many people are still saying such things. Some because that's what they always say, some because that's what they say when there's a Democrat president, some because they're extrapolating from the big price increases that took place in the first 5 months of the year. But for those paying closer attention to the flow of new information, inflation panic is, so last week. All right. You knew better, and so did we. In fact, we aired 2 episodes in February that explained just how Biden's policies would feed inflation. We shared that Biden was following the path of Jimmy Carter, and that would mean massive price hikes. Here's a clip. One of the key differences, however, has been reported inflation. When Carter took office, prices had been rising at a stellar clip for a couple of years, nearing double digits at times. By contrast, the estimated inflation rate for last year was under 1%. Unfortunately, that may be all about to change. In the 1960s, inflation was low, but a global shock changed everything. In the 4 years of Jimmy Carter, the annual inflation rate rose from 5.7% before he took office to 13.5% when he left. A lot of this was due to stimulative monetary policy and massive government spending. Sadly, we see those same combination of massive government spending and stimulative monetary policy at work today, and it looks like it's only going to get worse under the Biden administration. So let's discuss a few of the policies that the Biden administration plans to implement that will directly impact you and stoke the inflationary fires. For starters, think about energy. It's essential to your well-being. If gas prices rise, your wallet is impacted. You use energy to heat and cool your home, to run appliances, and to fuel your transportation. When energy prices rise, you pay. The Biden administration wants higher energy prices to reduce consumption and make alternatives more competitive. Think about that. The Biden administration wants higher energy prices, so you'll reduce your consumption, and they want to make alternatives more competitive. The Biden administration wants to end the use of fossil fuels, even though they are by far the most economical choice at present. Even though Biden denied that he wanted to ban fracking, he said that in the debates. No, I don't want to ban fracking. There are dozens of times before that he said just the opposite. He does want to ban fracking. This would end the shale revolution and result in higher prices. It would even help Russian and Middle East oil producers. When you realize that the cost of almost everything has an energy component, you can see that higher energy prices will impact everything else. Beyond that, Biden has floated the idea of a $15 an hour minimum wage. That would be a direct and permanent increase in the cost of labor. Think about what that would do to startup businesses. If you want to go get some fast food, think of what doubling the labor cost would do to the cost of your next Big Mac. Then there's the issue of regulation. According to the Mercatus Center at George Mason University, the data show that a 10% increase in total regulations leads to a 0.687% increase in consumer prices. President Trump slashed regulation, but Biden promises to increase it. So a 30% increase in regulation, which is something we can expect, would add 2% to the inflation rate just by itself. Then there's the issue of higher taxes. Biden has endorsed an increase in the corporate tax rate from 21 to 28%. The problem is that corporations don't really pay taxes. They just pass them along in the form of higher prices to consumers, or they cut wages, or they cut dividends. But other things being equal, they pass along higher taxes in the form of higher prices. Inflation, which had run about 1% last year, was reported at over 6% in October, as shown in this chart from the U.S. inflation calculator. That's the highest reported rate in 30 years. This is a major change from what economists and the media were telling us, and it is clearly the #1 economic story of 2021.